I never thought a simple conversation about our future would turn into a debate about trust, security, and sacrifice. When my wife, Emily, handed me a folder one evening, I had no idea it contained a plan that could change my entire life. She expected me to accept it instantly, but what she didn't expect was my response. Emily and I have been married for 5 years. We've always been a strong team, both of us working, building our lives together, and enjoying the kind of balance that made our relationship feel equal. She runs a successful real estate business, something she started long before we met, and I work as a project manager. While her business makes more money than I do, we've always operated as a dual-income household. That's how we saw ourselves, a partnership, side by side, both contributing in our own ways. That's why I was blindsided when she told me she wanted to start a family soon and that, when we did, she thought I should quit my job to stay home and take care of the household and future children. She was calm, confident, like she had thought this through for a long time. Meanwhile, I sat there in complete shock, staring at the papers she had handed me, outlining resources and plans to help me transition into a stay-at-home role. She had assumed I would accept this instantly, that I would see the logic in it just as she did. "Think about it," she said, her tone warm but firm. "My business makes significantly more than your salary. It just makes sense. You wouldn't have to deal with the stress of your job, and we wouldn't need daycare or a nanny. It's the best thing for our family." I wanted to respond right away, to push back against the idea that I should just walk away from my career like it was nothing. But I held back. I could tell she had put a lot of thought into this. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment idea. She had planned this, probably for months, if not longer. Still, I couldn't ignore the wave of emotions crashing over me. Was I really supposed to just give up my job, my independence, my whole career? While I understood her point, financially, it was logical. It wasn't that simple for me. I liked my job. I liked the structure, the sense of purpose. And beyond that, there was a deeper, unspoken fear growing inside me. What about my future? I finally asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "If I leave my job, I'm giving up my career advancement, my financial security. Meanwhile, your business keeps growing." She tilted her head, confused. "You wouldn't need to worry about money. I'd be supporting us." "I get that," I said, exhaling slowly. "But what if something happens? What if we don't work out? You'll still have your thriving business, and I'll be left trying to restart my career after years out of the workforce." Her face changed. She hadn't expected that response. "Are you saying you don't trust me?" "No, Emily. I love you. This isn't about trust," I said carefully. "It's about security. If I'm giving up everything I've built in my career, I think it's fair that I have some kind of legal stake in your business, just in case." Her expression hardened, and for the first time, there was tension in the air between us. "That feels transactional," she said softly, almost hurt. "Marriage isn't about keeping score." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "It's not about keeping score. It's about making sure that if I make this sacrifice for our family, I'm not left with nothing if things don't go the way we hope." Silence filled the room. The warm, easy conversation we'd started with had turned into something heavier, something neither of us had fully prepared for. I could see the disappointment in her eyes, the way she was processing what I had just said. And for the first time, I started wondering, had I just made a mistake? The silence between us stretched longer than I expected. Emily's eyes, usually filled with warmth and certainty, now held something else, something I couldn't quite place. Disappointment? Hurt? Frustration? Maybe all of them at once. I knew my response had shaken her. She had assumed I would trust her completely, that I would see this as a natural decision for our family. And in some ways, I understood why. She had built something incredible. Her business was thriving, growing, and I knew she worked hard for everything she had accomplished. But that didn't mean my concerns weren't valid. She exhaled, placing the papers on the table between us, like a physical barrier neither of us knew how to cross. "I didn't think you'd see it this way," she said, her voice quieter now, more controlled. "How else was I supposed to see it?" I asked, trying to keep my tone calm even though my heart was pounding. "Emily, you're asking me to give up my career, my financial independence. That's a huge decision. I need to think about my future, too." She looked down, shaking her head slightly. I thought you'd see this as a partnership, that we'd be in this together." "We are in this together," I insisted. "But that doesn't mean I should ignore what this could mean for me down the road. You get to keep growing, keep building. And what? Stay home, take care of everything else, and just hope for the best." Her jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw something defensive in her expression. That's not fair. You're acting like I'm trying to trap you or something. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. That's not what I'm saying, Em. But try to see it from my perspective. If the roles were reversed, if I asked you to leave your business, to become completely financially dependent on me, wouldn't you want some kind of security? Some guarantee that if things went south, you wouldn't be left starting over from nothing? She stared at me, her lips parting slightly as if to respond, but no words came out. I could tell the thought had never even crossed her mind. Finally, she scoffed lightly, leaning back in her chair. So you really think we'd end up divorced? My stomach clenched. That's not what this is about. Really? Because it kind of feels like it. She crossed her arms, and I could see the wall going up, the emotional distance growing between us. I thought we were building a life together, not planning for the worst-case scenario. Emily, I said softly, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. This isn't about expecting the worst. It's about making sure that if I take this step, I'm not left in a position where I regret it. You're asking me to give up my career, my stability, my future income. That's a lot. Her eyes flickered with something. Was it sadness? Frustration? And what about our future? Our family? Doesn't that matter more than a job? Her words hit me hard. Of course, our future mattered. Of course, our family mattered. But wasn't it possible to protect both? To love her, to want a family with her, and to still make sure I wasn't putting myself at risk? I could see now that we were looking at this from two completely different angles. She saw my hesitation as a lack of trust, as a sign that I was already preparing for failure. But I saw it as something else, something necessary. I took a deep breath. I love you, Em. That's why I'm thinking about this so seriously. If I do this, it changes everything for me. I just want to make sure it's the right decision for both of us. For a moment, I thought she might soften, that maybe she'd see where I was coming from. But instead, she stood up, grabbing the papers from the table. I need some air, she said, her voice tight. And just like that, she walked out the door, leaving me sitting there with a sinking feeling in my chest. I had spoken my truth, but at what cost? The door closed behind her with a quiet but final-sounding click, and suddenly, the house felt unbearably empty. I sat there for a long time, staring at the space she had just occupied, trying to make sense of what had just happened. I had expected a conversation, maybe even some back and forth where we'd weigh our options together. But instead, it felt like a chasm had opened between us, like we were speaking different languages, each unable to understand the other. I wasn't angry, not really. If anything, I felt frustrated, maybe even a little hurt. I wasn't saying no to her idea outright, but I also wasn't going to blindly accept a life-altering decision without some kind of security. Was that really so unreasonable? I sighed, rubbing my face as I replayed the conversation in my head. The way she had looked at me when I brought up the possibility of divorce, it had been almost like betrayal. As if even acknowledging that marriages sometimes don't last meant I had already given up on us. But that wasn't true. I loved Emily. I wanted a future with her. A family. A life we built together. But love alone didn't guarantee security. And I knew, deep down, that if the roles were reversed, if she were the one being asked to step away from everything she'd worked for, she would have the same concerns I did. I just didn't think she realized it yet. The hours ticked by, the silence stretching unbearably. I debated calling her, but something in me told me to give her space. Instead, I distracted myself, mindlessly scrolling through my phone, half watching some show I wasn't really paying attention to. At some point, my phone buzzed. A message from my friend, Jason. Jason, hey man, you okay? Emily just texted Sophie. Sounded like you two had a rough convo. I exhaled sharply. Of course, she had talked to Sophie. They told each other everything. Me? Yeah. Just didn't expect the conversation to go the way it did. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Jason. I hesitated before answering. Hey, dude, he said, his tone already carrying a warning. I gotta be honest, Sophie told me what happened, and I think you're overthinking this. Emily's offering you a pretty sweet deal. I frowned. Is that what it sounds like? A sweet deal. I mean, yeah. He chuckled lightly, but I wasn't laughing. She's saying she'll support you, give you a break from work, and all you have to do is stay home and take care of your future kids. That's a pretty solid setup, man. Most guys would kill for that. I closed my eyes, trying to keep my frustration in check. It's not that simple. It's not just about money. It's about my independence, my career, my future. Jason sighed. I get it. But you asking for part of her business? That's... I don't know, man. It just kinda sounds like you're planning for the marriage to fail. My stomach clenched. There it was again. That same accusation. I'm not planning for failure, I said firmly. I'm planning to protect myself. Those are two very different things. Are they? Jason asked, his tone skeptical. Because from the outside, it sounds like you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. I swallowed, feeling a mix of anger and doubt creep in. Was I? Was I really making this harder than it needed to be? Emily still wasn't home. My friends thought I was being unreasonable. And now, sitting here alone, I was starting to wonder. Had I made the right call? Or had I just pushed my wife further away? I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind replayed our conversation, each moment feeling heavier than the last. The silence of the house, once comforting, now felt suffocating. Emily still hadn't come home. I told myself she just needed space, that she'd cool down, and we'd talk through it like we always did. But as the hours passed and my phone remained silent, doubt started creeping in. By morning, the bed beside me was still empty. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. She had stayed somewhere else. I sat up, running a hand through my hair, exhaustion weighing on me. Was this really that big of a deal to her? Or had I just completely misread everything? Just as I was about to text her, my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Emily, I need some time to think. Staying at Sophie's for now. I stared at the words, my chest tightening. She was still upset. And she wasn't ready to come home. Me, can we talk? A few minutes passed. Then, Emily, not yet. The finality in those two words sent a sharp pain through my chest. I set my phone down, exhaling slowly. This wasn't just a small argument anymore. This was something bigger. I went through the motions of my morning routine, but everything felt off. My appetite was gone. My usual sense of control, of knowing how to navigate tough conversations, felt completely useless here. By the afternoon, Jason called again. I let it ring once before answering. She's still at Sophie's? He asked. Yeah. Jason sighed. Look, man, I know you're frustrated, but maybe this is just one of those times you need to bend a little. She's not asking you to do something crazy. She just wants to know you're in this with her. I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. I'm in this with her. That's why I need to make sure we're making the right decision together. Jason paused. So, what's more important? Making sure you're protected or making sure you don't lose your wife over this? The question hit hard. Because I knew what he meant. I knew what he was implying. But the answer wasn't that simple. I didn't want to lose Emily. I loved her. But I also didn't want to wake up years from now, resenting the sacrifices I had made without thinking them through. And that's what scared me most. Because right now, I didn't know if she could see that. And I didn't know if I could make her understand before it was too late. The next 2 days were the longest of my life. Every hour that passed without Emily coming home felt like a slow unraveling of everything I thought we had. She had never stayed away this long before, not after an argument, not without talking things through. I kept staring at my phone, willing it to ring, waiting for a message that never came. The weight of uncertainty sat heavy in my chest. Had I really messed this up so badly? By the third evening, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I drove to Sophie's house, my pulse pounding the entire way. I didn't know if Emily would even want to see me, but I had to try. I had to fix this before the distance between us became permanent. When Sophie opened the door, she hesitated, her expression unreadable. She's inside, she said finally. But just be careful, okay? That warning made my stomach sink, but I nodded and stepped in. Emily was sitting on the couch, legs curled under her, staring at her phone. When she looked up and saw me, something flickered in her eyes. Relief? Pain? I couldn't tell. Hey, I said softly. Hey, she murmured, setting her phone down. I sat down across from her, not too close, giving her space. I didn't come here to fight, I said. I need to know where we stand. She let out a slow breath, looking down at her hands. I don't know, she admitted. I thought I did, but now I'm not so sure. The words hit hard, harder than I expected. Emily, I said carefully, I never meant to hurt you. And I never meant to make you feel like I don't trust you. But you're asking me to give up my career, my independence, everything I've built for myself. That's not an easy thing to say yes to. She lifted her gaze, and this time, I saw it, hurt mixed with frustration. And you're asking me to put a price tag on our marriage. On trust. On love. Do you know how that feels? I swallowed hard. It's not about putting a price on anything. It's about making sure that if something ever happens, if things don't go the way we plan, I'm not left with nothing while you keep growing. Her eyes glistened, and for the first time, I saw the weight of this on her too. I never wanted you to feel like you had to choose between me and your security, she whispered. I don't want that either, I said. But we need to find a way where neither of us feels like we're the only one making the sacrifice. She nodded slowly, wiping at her eyes. Then we have a lot to figure out. I reached for her hand, and this time, she didn't pull away. Maybe this wasn't the end. Maybe it was just the beginning of a different kind of conversation. What would you do in my situation? Would you sacrifice your career for the sake of your marriage, trusting that love is enough? Or would you ask for security, knowing that the future is never guaranteed? I need to know, am I being unreasonable or just protecting myself? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you think I made the right call, show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Every like lets me know I'm not alone in this. So, what would you choose? Love without conditions or love with security?